cheating wife had one night stand with a dude at the bar. She got on her knees and begged at my feet not to leave her. But I was adamant and said that she should have thought of this last night. Wife cheated on me 2 months ago. Went out drinking with her friends, happens rarely, despite asking her several times to stay home with me that night and spend time with our 2-year-old son. Apparently at the bar this dude bought her several drinks and she got drunk as hell, which was extremely atypical of her. Her friends had a bad feeling about this and tried to bring her home, but she insisted she would take a cab and her friends eventually left her alone with the guy. Well, as it turns out, she went home with him. The whole time I was blowing up her phone, dozens of texts and calls, and I kept asking her friends where she was, but I got no answer from them. I had never been so worried in my life. Then she comes back at 3 a.m. reeking of alcohol and covered in tears. She confessed to everything right at the door, every single detail. She didn't even know this a-hole's name yet liked him enough to go to his house and duck him on his bed. She said as soon as her head cleared up she broke down in tears over what she just did and took a cab home. Now me, I was enraged but didn't want to say or do anything since I knew I would probably go to jail if I did. I calmly told her to shower and go to sleep, then I took off my wedding ring and got out of the house, just went around driving for a bit, screaming in the car, etc. Meanwhile, she's blowing up my phone with tons of messages and voicemails apologizing and begging me to come back. I come back a few hours later and she's awake, still sobbing and mumbling. I asked her what we would do now and she swore to do anything and everything to regain my trust. I was of mind to divorce immediately, but I loved my wife and connected with her more strongly than with anyone else. I didn't forgive her yet but gave her a chance to try. She was ecstatic but still in tears, saying she doesn't deserve it but will make the most of it. And I guess she's been true to her word. She doesn't go out to bars anymore without me, she gave me complete access to all of her stuff, she only drinks when I'm there, and she has been giving 200% to please me, cooking all my favorite meals, buying me tons of gifts, continuously apologizing, doing more housework to give me more free time, even writing poems asking for my forgiveness. She even confessed what she had done to her friends, who had been avoiding her more and more out of disgust for what she did to me. She also told her parents what she did on her own accord, and explained that she was raised better than that and is trying to save her marriage. Not once did she try to blame the cheating on me or remove any responsibility from herself. She didn't try to justify or rationalize what she had done because she knew there was nothing bad about our relationship she could go off of. She accepted full blame and owned up to her actions. She said she's willing to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to save our marriage. She still cries from time to time out of remorse, like before bed, during showers, sometimes just while cooking. This sounds like the perfect post-cheating course of action, I know. She is doing everything flawlessly. Despite this, I just can't get the image out of my head. Every time she tries to be intimate I think of her and him, clam up and then push her away, not violently. Since that night we haven't so much as hugged. She has tried to kiss me before, but like usual I just distance myself. I've been sleeping in the guest bedroom while she begs me to come to her and then cries herself to sleep every night. I know that she's truly and genuinely sorry, that her remorse is real. These aren't crocodile tears that most cheaters cry when they get caught. She did everything right. She confessed to me immediately, changed her habits, and did everything I asked. She sometimes asks me if I've forgiven her yet and I always say not yet. I mentioned possibly divorcing to her a few weeks ago and she broke down, saying she will never love another man, will never allow another man to raise our child, that I mean everything to her and her whole world would just shatter into pieces if she lost me. I think out of all the people who have ever cheated and want to regain the trust of their partner, my wife has done the best. Despite this, I just can't forget about she did. I wake up in the morning and the first thing I think of is her in his bed with him. I have trouble sleeping now since the thought of them having sex keeps me up. I feel nauseous and numb all the time. The singular thought, some other guy ducked my wife, is stuck in my mind all day. I don't want this to keep happening, but I can't find any way to strike it from my mind. Every so often I feel like unleashing all my anger on her, calling her all the names in the book, telling her I hate her. Lately, I find myself on a local pier, just staring out into the ocean for hours at a time. I go there to just stop thinking about what she did and escape for a while. Then when I go home the misery starts again. I don't know if I love my wife anymore. At times I feel such a strong hatred for her that I almost vomit knowing that I married her. Sometimes I see her as she was before the cheating, and in those moments I can love her again. They don't last longer than a few seconds though. I feel like I'm the bad guy for wanting a divorce. She has been doing everything correctly since the infidelity, so I should forgive her, right? That's what most people would probably do, I guess, but I can't stop thinking about her and the other guy. I know that as long as I keep thinking about them, this marriage won't last. Our anniversary is in 9 days. This keeps triggering memories of our relationship, the wedding, the birth of our son, trips we took, happy days, etc. Now it just hurts, a really heavy pain in my chest and throat to think of them. We've been together since high school, fully committed and faithful. I just can't grasp how she could do this to me, how she could make a series of bad decisions, one after the other, to end up cheating. My mouth feels dry whenever I think of how that night must have gone. How she must have kissed him, walked into his home, to his bedroom, laid down on his bed, took off her clothes, whatever. I fantasize about cheating on her to make things even. Sometimes I imagine just hitting her over and over, but I would never do that. I never laid a finger on my wife. I don't hurt people. I've never had violent or angry thoughts like this before. My wife's adultery ducked with my head more than should be possible. I don't feel like the same person anymore. I feel hollow all the time. I'm here to ask, is there any way I can bring myself to forgive her? Or should I just divorce her and move on, find a woman who won't cheat on me? I want my son to grow up with the belief that cheating is totally unacceptable. I feel like if I stay with my wife, my son will learn that it's okay to forgive cheating, and I don't want him to ever stay with a woman who cheated on him. At the same time, I keep living every day hoping I might have an epiphany, that I can truly forgive her and love her again. Seems like a hopeless fantasy though. I'm thinking about therapy for myself. I'm sort of reluctant to do marriage counseling since I fear the counselor will try to find a way to spin the whole thing on me and blame me for creating an environment that led her to cheat. Not going to tolerate hearing that bullcrap. Please help me. I don't know what to do. I'm sick of feeling sick. Aita, I figured out what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk to her about possibly making it even somehow. I'll see what she says, and depending on her response, I might try to reconcile or divorce without a second thought. Also, I'm going to ask her for the full truth about this guy. I find it weird that she remembers he's divorced 33 and not in shape but can't remember his name. Never mind, this is a bad idea. This was my vengeful side talking. I'm not going to try and make it even. I'm just going to get the full truth out of her and then steel myself to suggest divorce. Yes, I want her to suffer for what she did. As one user said in a PM, she will suffer most if I leave her. In her own words, she said that would destroy her. But I'm not divorcing her just to spite her, no. I'm doing it because I don't want to remain in a ruined marriage. I'm doing it because she betrayed me and I'm not willing to be a doormat and excuse her behavior. I probably won't change my mind, but I'll come back with an update later anyway. Update. Meant to write this yesterday but didn't get around to it. I thought long and hard about what to do after reading all the responses in PMs, one of which said I deserved to be cheated on, and even had a phone conversation with another Redditor who was kind enough to lend me his time. I confronted her for the full truth yesterday. Same old stuff, her crying and apologizing and begging for forgiveness. She didn't remember his name since it didn't come up after their introduction, and she said the reason she kept talking to him was because he was practically drooling over her beauty and she took pity on him for being recently divorced, losing his house, custody, money, etc. So basically my wife tried to comfort him and got her ego stroked at the same time, then ducked him. Her phone was on silent the whole time, very unusual of her, but she wanted to hang out with her friends undisturbed. I suppose calls from her husband were considered disruptions that evening. The fact that she gave him what I interpreted as a pity duck made me lose the little respect I had left for her. She swore on her life that she would do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to regain my trust and save our marriage. I asked her what lengths she was willing to go to, and she said if what it takes is me doing it with another woman right in front of her, then she would go for it. If it took having a half-open relationship on my end, then she would do it. If it took her admitting to our son, when he's an adult, what she did, she would do it. She said she would do whatever it takes. I'll admit, I was surprised and touched by this. In that moment, I understood that my wife was truly remorseful and loved me beyond measure. I saw that her apology, her efforts, everything she had done was genuine. I believed that she would certainly erase her crime if she could. I loved my wife. Then I remembered that many people go through life without ever cheating on their partner. That there are women who would never put themselves in such a situation that could lead to cheating. For the 12 years of our relationship, I have not strayed once, despite having several opportunities to do so. And I know that I deserve a woman who won't betray me. My wife did all she could to try and atone for her infidelity, but once something is broken, you can't restore it to what it once was. I'd rather be unmarried than stay in a once broken, repaired marriage. Even if I took her back, the marriage would never be the same again, and I'm not going to torture myself with such a life. I don't want to constantly be in paranoia, wondering if my wife truly is at the grocery store, if she is actually working late or hurting me again. I told her I wanted a divorce and she broke. I explained to her why despite her pleading. She got on her knees and begged at my feet, saying that she would rather die than be without me. I told her that actions have consequences and I will never forgive her for cheating. She kept crying and I told her to move back in with her parents for the time being. I said I would take care of our son, but she's allowed to visit him anytime. She kept crying and begging, but I was firm on this. She's moving out in 2 days. I plan to meet with a divorce lawyer soon and get the ball rolling. I'm not sure if time away from my wife will change my feelings, but I strongly doubt it. She made her bed, now she can lie in it. I guess that's it. I'm going to divorce her and hopefully get my life back together. I know it's still too early to think about these things, but I've already decided to remain on civil but minimal terms with my wife when we are divorced. Never will I entertain the idea of reconciling with her, but I will be polite in our future interactions solely for my son's sake. For the next few months that we're apart, I'm going to make the most of it. I will focus first and foremost on my son. I will periodically check in with my wife's family to see how she is doing. I won't go out and mingle with new women until I'm divorced. I will spend more time at the gym to let out my anger. I will focus my free time on my hobbies, playing the piano and painting, also as a way to let out my emotions. I won't update anymore. Thanks to all who gave advice and tried to help me make the right decision. I'm confident in what I'm doing and I pray things work out for me. I caught her cheating and got revenge. This is a follow-up to my post from last week. Reddit, I have proof she cheated on me and need a revenge plan. Is this too cruel? Basically, I asked Reddit to help me think of a way to get justice while dumping my girlfriend. I never expected the huge response I got, and I sincerely thank everyone for responding. I read every single comment. Almost everything I did was a suggestion I got from you all. The top suggestion was to just walk away, rise above everything, forget about revenge and suddenly disappear from her life forever. I thought about this seriously for a long time, but finally decided to listen to the only part that matters in that plan, having it be over and then never seeing or talking to her again. Disappearing would mean her trying to contact me for days, and I wanted it to just be over and see the look on her face. Believe it or not, but guys need closure too. Here's what happened as best as I can remember. I decided that Valentine's Day was the perfect day to go through with it, but since I'd caught her cheating last week, I hadn't thought to get reservations anywhere. Thanks to a fellow Redditor, I managed to get a spot for us at a really nice restaurant by the lake. I live in Austin. I told my girlfriend that I'd come over to her apartment before we went out and make some drinks while she got ready. I had already packed all of her stuff from my own apartment, including the expensive face cream she keeps, and yeah, I jerked off into it so she'll be wearing my facial every day for months. It was an idea inspired by one of the comments here. I put all of her crap in a travel bag and drove over to her apartment. I left the bag in the car and went in. She busted out some glasses and bottles of liquor for me to make drinks and then got in the shower. While she was in there, I grabbed the bag from my car and put it in her closet. I also hid a 3-pack of protection in the bag but only left 2 rubbers in it. She'll probably find them, think I left them accidentally and always wonder if I cheated on her. We lost our V to each other and never used protection. She was still in the shower during this time and I grabbed her cell phone and deleted myself from it. I also looked up Theo in her contacts and changed his phone number to mine for later. After that, I made her a vodka Sprite and spit in it a few times. I had a big shot of vodka and waited for her, and when she was dressed we had our drinks. I hate to admit it, but she looked really good, so I talked her into giving me some warm-up for tonight. A lot of the comments told me I should tap it one last time, and I agreed. I made her gag accidentally a few times right in the same spot I'd seen her blowing the other guy. When I was done, I told her that my car was acting funny, so we should take hers instead. I drove us to the restaurant. This was the part of the date that was supposed to be perfect. We had dinner and wine and I went out of my way to make everything seem normal, giving her the perfect Valentine's dinner. We talked about vacations we'd taken together and how we'd like to go back. I brought up old memories and made her laugh. I asked her where she wanted to be in 5 years, and she said hopefully married by then. It was hard at times, but I was already committed to finishing it. We were done eating, so I excused myself to the bathroom to wash my hands. From there, I made a call to my best friend and told him to pick me up in half an hour. That's all the time I was ever going to give the heartless witch again. I came out of the bathroom and paid the bill, give me some credit for being a gentleman still, and suggested we take a walk along the lake. Thanks again to the Redditor, because this turned out to be perfect. There was a little dock nearby and we stood on it, and my hands were shaking, but I finally called her out. I asked her if there was anything she wanted to tell me. She looked confused and played it off very well. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I probably would have believed her. I let her lie to me and then told her that I knew about Theo, that she'd accidentally called me and I'd caught them ducking around. I told her I'd found him on Facebook and seen his bragging updates. While I was telling her this, she started bawling, and I've gotta admit that I was crying a little too. But I kept going and told her how much she'd hurt me, and that I'd been throwing up all week and sick about it. The only thing she kept saying was that she was sorry. The rest of the time she was crying and almost hyperventilating. She would try to interrupt, but I kept telling her to let me finish. I wasn't too sure if I was gonna do this part of the plan, but I had nothing else to lose, so I said duck it. I told her that I honestly believed she was the girl I was going to spend the rest of my life with, which was true, and pulled out a jewelry ring box from my coat. I'd gotten it the day before for about $15 in the same gas station as the protection. I didn't open the box because the ring looked totally cheap, but I told my girlfriend I'd had it for a while but wasn't going to need it anymore. I threw the box into the lake and it totally looked real because of the tears in my eyes. She hadn't stopped crying this whole time and was pulling at me and begging me to listen to her and let her talk over and over again. I don't know how else to describe it. She was having a total freakout and I decided it was the perfect time to walk away. I told her there was nothing to talk about and nothing she could say. I never wanted to see her again or talk to her. I told her that I left a bag of her stuff in her closet, and if she left anything else to have a friend come get it. I even mentioned that I'd noticed a bump on me and was going to the doctor this week and suggested she do the same. I made it clear that this was the last time we would ever talk to each other, and then gave her the keys to her car back and said goodbye. She tried to hug me and kept saying forgive me, but I knew better and backed off. I walked away and left her there at the dock. My friend was waiting outside the restaurant, and I got in the car with him and went to pick up my car back at her place. While we were on the way, I followed through with the last part of my plan. I sent her a TXT message, which she would now think was from Theo since I'd switched numbers. It said, WTF, your boyfriend emailed me and knows about us. I don't want this drama, don't call or TXT me again. Seriously. She still hasn't written back. Yeah, she'll eventually figure it out and think I'm immature, but I honestly don't give a crap anymore. The person who suggested the TXT message plan was right. It's like she got dumped twice on Valentine's Day, and you can't say she doesn't deserve it. So there it is. I did it and actually feel relieved, but a little in shock now. This has literally been the worst week of my life, and I'm not sure how I'll handle it. But I'm glad that I reached out, even if it was to strangers. I can't thank you enough for the majority of you out there being helpful and understanding. And if all this makes me a bad man, I'm prepared to live with it. At least I did something and didn't just get trampled and pitted. Update. It seems like half of Reddit now believes I'm just as bad as a cheater now? I'm sorry, but it's been almost 2 days and I don't regret a thing. She turned out to be a monster, barely human, there's no comparison. And I'd love to prove this is real, but there's no realistic way for me to do that without giving out names, and I can't do that for obvious reasons. My fiancée and mother of child cheated with my brother. She and I have been together 12 years. 5 years ago I had set up a family gathering for my daughter, 8mo, to be baptized, and had made my older brother the godfather of my daughter. Directly after the baptism, my whole family, about 50 people, met at my house for a baptism party. A few hours into the event, and I realized my woman was nowhere to be found. I started to look everywhere for her, realizing my brother was also missing from the party. I ran to the driveway loaded with cars and saw them between 2 open car doors, nose to nose. I immediately approached them, realizing my brother's Johnson was fully erect and my fiancée had just pulled up her top. I yelled, "Tell me what the duck is going on here." They looked terrified as she spoke up and said with a grin, "We're drunk." As my brother fumbled with his erection, I wanted to attack them both right there. Instead, I went into the house, got my keys, and left in a rage of pain and emotion. I called them immediately and demanded answers. They said nothing had happened and LM just going crazy over nothing. He just so happened to be erect as they isolated themselves away from the party? I moved out for a month, visiting my baby girl every day, and had my ex begging me to come home, and swore to God nothing had happened. My brother also was telling me, "No, brother, I would never do that to you." Never. After months and months of begging for the truth and sobbing for closure from the both of them, I still was told nothing happened. She wanted to make it work, so we set up a counseling appointment with my pastor, who I've known since I was a child, and that had baptized my daughter that very day they decided to cheat. He has known my brother and I closely since we were in first grade. At the therapy session, she had put her hand on the Bible and swore that nothing had happened. I moved back home after the torture of being away from my beautiful baby girl and periodically begged for the truth, causing arguments as she felt I did not have the right to accuse her. Over and over, year after year. We then had a second daughter, and I asked her to marry me again in front of her entire family on Christmas Day 2017. One night 3 weeks ago it dawned on me to tell her I already knew what happened, and that my brother had come clean. Now I asked for her side of the story. She started off by telling me, "Your brother came up behind me as I leaned into the car and started kissing him. Then he took out my breasts and played with them, and then we saw you coming and immediately separated." That was her story. Devastated, I then asked my brother for his side of the story. The very next morning, I asked him what had happened, and he gave me a very similar story. But when I asked him if he had sex with my wife that night, all he repeated was, "I'm so sorry." When I told my fiancée about what my brother had apologized for, she started screaming, telling me to get out. I left and immediately called my brother, letting him know what she had said and her side of the story, and he told me that is not at all what happened. His story was that they were standing there, and she was telling him how she has always fantasized about having sex with him, and how bad she wanted him, and then she started kissing him. I went back to my fiancée asking her why she had lied about the way the incident happened, and she continued to deny my brother's story. I have completely lost my mind over this while still living here, taking care of my baby girls and looking her in the eyes, and knowing that the woman I love has been with my brother every time she touches me, knowing that my brother has been inside of her, and kiss your lips and touch your breasts, and knowing her hands had been on his Johnson absolutely disgusts me and devastates me beyond comprehension. I have wept for 4 weeks now since finding this out, and still getting 2 different stories. I also started in therapy, and have not made much progress in the 2 sessions that I've had so far. I need all the help I can get. I'm falling apart as a man. I have no dignity, I have no trust, have no family. The only thing that keeps me here is my babies. I've been going through the worst depression of my life, and I've never been depressed one day in my life previous to this. I have not been able to sleep. I do not enjoy the woman that I'm in love with. I can't lay next to her without wanting to crawl out of my skin. Any insight into what my next move should be, or how anyone could possibly help me get through something so horribly devastating, would be so greatly appreciated. I'm falling apart more every day, crying face. Sincerely, a loving father of two.